Picture this. You've been cooking Chinese food at home for years, and it never quite tastes like what you get at a restaurant. The sauce is too thin, the vegetables are soggy, the meat is tough, and somehow the whole dish just feels flat. What if I told you that Chinese home cooks and professional chefs have been using a collection of incredibly clever tricks for generations that solve every single one of these problems? Today we are counting down 31 of the most useful Chinese cooking hacks that actually work. And by the time we reach number 1, your entire approach to cooking is going to change. Let's get into it. Number 31. Use cold water when making dumplings dough. Here's something most Americans don't know. Chinese people use cold water, not warm water, when making dumpling wrappers. Cold water tightens the gluten proteins in the flour more slowly, which gives you a dough that is elastic, smooth, and much easier to roll thin without tearing. Warm water dough is for steamed buns. Cold water dough is for boiled or pan-fried dumplings. Just mix 1 cup of all-purpose flour with about 1/3 cup of cold water. Knead for 8 to 10 minutes, then let it rest covered for 30 minutes. That resting period is non-negotiable because it allows the gluten to relax so the dough stops fighting you when you roll it. Number 30. Freeze your meat for 15 minutes before slicing. Chinese stir-fry recipes almost always call for paper-thin slices of beef, pork, or chicken. Trying to slice raw meat that thin when it is fully thawed is a nightmare. The Chinese solution is brilliantly simple. Put the meat in the freezer for exactly 15 minutes before you slice it. The outside firms up just enough to give you resistance while cutting, but the inside is not frozen solid. You get clean, even restaurant-thin slices every single time without any professional knife skills required. Number 29. Add a splash of Shaoxing rice wine to almost everything. Shaoxing wine is the secret ingredient that home cooks in China reach for constantly. It is a fermented rice wine that smells very strong in the bottle, but cooks off almost entirely in the pan, leaving behind a deep, slightly nutty, complex flavor that makes sauces and marinades taste finished and professional. You can find it at any Asian grocery store, and it costs about $3. Add a tablespoon when you marinate meat, splash it in when you deglaze a wok, and stir a little into your fried rice. Dry sherry is the best substitute if you absolutely cannot find it. Number 28. Velvet your chicken before cooking. Velveting is one of the most transformational techniques in Chinese cooking. It is the reason restaurant chicken is always incredibly silky and tender, while yours comes out dry and chewy. The process is simple. Combine 1 pound of sliced chicken with 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of Shaoxing wine, 1 egg white, and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Mix thoroughly and let it sit for at least 20 minutes. The cornstarch and egg white form a protective coating that seals moisture inside the meat during the high-heat cooking process, and the result is chicken with a texture that feels almost impossibly smooth. Number 27. Use baking soda to tenderize beef. This is one of the oldest tricks Chinese cooks use for beef stir-fry. Sprinkle about 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda per pound of sliced beef. Mix it well, and let it sit for 15 to 20 minutes before rinsing it off thoroughly and proceeding with your recipe. The baking soda raises the pH on the surface of the meat, which makes it harder for the proteins to bond together too tightly during cooking. The result is beef that stays remarkably tender, even over extremely high heat. This is how Chinese takeout restaurants get that soft, almost velvety texture in their beef dishes. Number 26. Never skip the oil blanching step for vegetables. In serious Chinese restaurant kitchens, vegetables are often quickly passed through hot oil before being stir-fried. You do not need a deep fryer to replicate this. Heat about 1/4 cup of oil in your wok or pan until it shimmers. Toss in your vegetables for just 30 to 45 seconds, then remove them and proceed with your stir-fry. This step seals the surface of the vegetable, locks in the vivid green color, and creates a slight caramelization that you simply cannot achieve by tossing raw vegetables directly into a sauce. Your broccoli will look like it came from a Chinese restaurant, not from a sad weeknight dinner. Number 25. Make your own chili oil by infusing, not just heating. Chili oil is everywhere in Chinese cooking, and the difference between store-bought and homemade is enormous. The key is to bloom your aromatics properly. Combine 2 cups of neutral oil with 2 star anise, a cinnamon stick, a few Sichuan peppercorns, and 3 crushed garlic cloves in a cold pan. Heat everything together slowly until the oil reaches about 250 degrees Fahrenheit, which is when the spices start sizzling gently. Pour this hot infused oil over a mixture of red pepper flakes, a teaspoon of soy sauce, and a teaspoon of sesame oil. The gradual heating extracts maximum flavor from every aromatic and creates an oil that is layered and complex rather than just spicy. Number 24. Toast your white pepper before using it. Chinese people use white pepper constantly, especially in soups, egg dishes, and wontons, but most Americans use it straight out of the jar without toasting it first. Toast white peppercorns in a dry pan over medium heat for about 2 minutes, just until they become fragrant and slightly darker. Then, grind them fresh. Toasting wakes up the volatile oils inside the peppercorn and produces a flavor that is sharper, earthier, and more aromatic than the pre-ground powder. The difference in a simple egg drop soup is immediately noticeable. Number 23. Cook your rice without measuring water. The traditional Chinese method of measuring water for rice requires no measuring cup whatsoever. Place your rinsed rice in the pot, then rest your index finger on the surface of the rice. Add water until it reaches your first knuckle joint, regardless of how much rice you are cooking. This method works because the ratio of water absorption to rice volume is relatively constant, and the distance from the surface of the rice to the first knuckle of an average adult hand is approximately 1 inch, which corresponds to the correct water ratio. It works remarkably consistently once you try it. Number 22. Rinse your rice until the water runs clear. Chinese people rinse rice before cooking, and this is not just a cultural habit. Rinsing removes excess surface starch that causes rice to clump together and become gluey. Place your rice in the pot, cover it with cold water, swirl it around with your hand, then pour off the cloudy water. Repeat this process 3 to 4 times until the water is nearly clear. The rice grains will cook up separate, fluffy, and individually distinct rather than stuck together in a starchy mass. Number 21. Use a mix of sesame oil and neutral oil for stir-frying. Here is a common mistake Americans make. They try to stir-fry entirely with sesame oil because it smells amazing. Sesame oil has a very low smoke point, and it burns almost immediately in a hot wok, turning bitter and acrid. The Chinese approach is to stir-fry with a high smoke point neutral oil like vegetable or canola oil, then finish the dish by drizzling a small amount of sesame oil over everything right before serving. This way you get the flavor and aroma of sesame oil without any of the bitterness, and it also stays on the surface of the food, where your nose and tongue actually experience it first. Number 20. Add cornstarch slurry at the very end, not the beginning. Thickening sauces with cornstarch is fundamental to Chinese cooking, but timing matters enormously. Many people add cornstarch too early, which causes it to cook unevenly and sometimes creates lumps. Make your slurry by dissolving 1 tablespoon of cornstarch in 2 tablespoons of cold water. Push all your ingredients to the side of the wok. Pour the slurry into the liquid in the center. Stir constantly for about 30 seconds until it thickens and turns glossy. Then mix everything together and pull the pan off the heat immediately. The sauce should coat everything with a glossy sheen that makes the dish look and taste like restaurant quality. Number 19. Steam fish with the freshest aromatics on top, not underneath. When Chinese people steam a whole fish or fish fillets, they layer sliced ginger and green onion directly on top of the fish and inside any cavity rather than underneath it. This positioning allows the steam to carry the aromatic oils from the ginger and onion downward through the fish as the steam condenses. After the fish is cooked, remove the old aromatics and replace them with fresh ginger and scallion, then pour hot oil over the top to sizzle the fresh aromatics onto the fish. This final hot oil step is what creates that amazing fragrant crust on top without any frying. Number 18. Use the back of a knife to smash garlic instead of mincing it immediately. Chinese cooking relies heavily on garlic, and the technique of smashing rather than just slicing changes everything. Place the flat side of your knife on a clove of garlic and press down firmly with the heel of your hand until you feel it crack. The skin falls off instantly, and more importantly, smashing ruptures cell walls throughout the clove. This releases allicin compounds more completely than fine mincing, which produces a more pungent, complex garlic flavor that disperses into oil more readily. Smash first, then rough chop if needed, and your garlic will taste significantly more powerful. Number 17. Let your wok smoke before adding oil. One of the most fundamental principles in Chinese restaurant cooking is what professional chefs call wok hei, which literally translates to breath of the wok. That smoky, slightly charred flavor you get from restaurant Chinese food is almost entirely the result of cooking in an extremely hot pan. At home, heat your empty wok over the highest flame your stove can produce until you actually see a faint wisp of smoke rising from the surface. Then add your oil and swirl it around a coat. The oil will shimmer immediately and be ready for cooking. This prevents ingredients from steaming in a lukewarm pan and actually creates the Maillard reaction that produces complex flavors. Number 16. Double fry your crispy dishes. Dishes like General Tso's chicken, sweet and sour pork, and crispy beef are always fried twice in Chinese restaurant cooking. The first fry at a lower temperature, around 325 degrees Fahrenheit, cooks the meat all the way through. Pull the pieces out and let them rest for 3 to 5 minutes while you raise the oil temperature to 375 degrees. The second fry at this higher temperature crisps the exterior to a shattering crunch and drives out any remaining moisture. Single frying never achieves the same level of crunch because the exterior gets coated in steam before it can crisp properly. Double frying is the only method that produces truly crispy results that hold their texture even after the sauce is added. Number 15. Add a pinch of sugar to savory dishes. Chinese cooking almost always incorporates a small amount of sugar into savory sauces and marinades. This is not to make things sweet. It is to round out harsh flavors and create balance. Sugar interacts with salt and acid to soften sharp edges in a sauce and create the perception of more complexity. Even a quarter teaspoon in a stir-fry sauce makes it taste more finished and restaurant-like. Think of it as a flavor amplifier rather than a sweetener, and you will start understanding why Chinese sauces always taste more balanced than homemade attempts that leave out this crucial step. Number 14. Use dark soy sauce for color, light soy sauce for flavor. Americans often have just one bottle of soy sauce in the kitchen, but Chinese cooks typically keep two. Light soy sauce, which is actually saltier, is used for flavor throughout the cooking process. Dark soy sauce has a slightly thicker consistency and a deep molasses-like color that is used primarily to give dishes like braised pork belly or red braised chicken their characteristic mahogany color. If your Chinese dishes always come out looking pale and unappetizing, a half teaspoon of dark soy sauce added during braising or stir-frying will immediately transform the visual appearance without making the dish excessively salty. Number 13. Marinate tofu in salted water before cooking. Most people cook tofu directly from the package and wonder why it tastes bland and wet. Chinese cooks often soak firm tofu in warm salted water for 15 to 20 minutes before cooking it. The salt draws out excess water through osmosis while simultaneously seasoning the interior of the tofu block. After the soak, pat it completely dry with paper towels. Tofu treated this way absorbs sauces and marinades much more readily, holds its shape better during high-heat cooking, and actually tastes seasoned from the inside rather than just coated on the outside. Number 12. Add vinegar to braising liquid for fall-apart texture. Chinese red braised pork belly, also known as hong shao ru, is legendarily soft and gelatinous. One of the secrets is adding a small amount of Chinese black vinegar or regular rice vinegar to the braising liquid early in the cooking process. Acid breaks down collagen in fatty cuts of meat much more efficiently than heat alone. This collagen conversion into gelatin is what creates that rich, glossy, melt-in-your-mouth texture. Add about 1 tablespoon of vinegar per pound of pork belly, along with your soy sauce, sugar, and Shaoxing wine at the very beginning of the braise. Number 11. Use MSG without fear. MSG, or monosodium glutamate, has been used in Chinese cooking since its invention in the early 20th century and has been repeatedly studied and shown to be safe for consumption. Chinese cooks use it specifically because it activates umami receptors on the tongue that neither salt nor sugar can reach. Adding just an eighth of a teaspoon to a pot of fried rice or a bowl of soup dramatically increases the perceived savoriness and depth of the dish. If you have been avoiding MSG based on outdated and debunked concerns, you are voluntarily making your food taste less delicious for no valid reason. Number 10. Steam your bao dough by starting in cold water. This is a counterintuitive trick from Chinese steamed bun making. Instead of placing formed bao into a steamer that is already full of raging steam, place them in a cold steamer and let them proof for 10 minutes as the water heats up. This gradual temperature increase allows the buns to continue rising in a moist environment before the intense heat sets the structure. Bao started in cold steam are noticeably fluffier and lighter than those dropped into hot steam, which sets the outside too quickly and prevents full expansion of the interior. Number 9. Score your cucumbers before marinating. Chinese smashed cucumber salad, or pai huang gua, is one of the simplest and most satisfying dishes in the entire repertoire. The key technique is smashing the cucumber with the flat of your knife rather than slicing it cleanly. Smashing creates irregular jagged surfaces and tiny cracks throughout the cucumber flesh. These irregular surfaces have dramatically more surface area for the dressing to penetrate compared to clean-cut slices. Marinating smashed cucumbers in salt, garlic, sesame oil, and black vinegar for just 20 minutes produces a dish that is deeply seasoned all the way through rather than just on the surface. Number 8. Finish fried rice with a high heat toss. The biggest mistake Americans make when cooking fried rice is not using enough heat and not moving the rice constantly. Chinese cooks cook fried rice over the absolute maximum heat possible, tossing and stirring the rice nearly continuously so every grain spends time directly on the surface of the hot pan. This constant motion combined with high heat evaporates moisture from the rice rapidly and creates those individual distinct grains with slightly caramelized spots. If your fried rice always comes out steamy and clumped, the problem is heat. Use your highest burner and keep the rice moving for the entire cooking time. Number 7. Rest braised dishes overnight in the refrigerator. Chinese braised dishes like soy sauce chicken or red braised pork are always significantly better the next day, and there is a real scientific reason for this. As a braised dish cools and then sits overnight, the meat continues to absorb the braising liquid through a process of osmotic diffusion. The flavors also mellow and integrate as the various aromatic compounds bond together at cooler temperatures. Chinese families almost always make braised dishes the day before serving them precisely because they understand that a rested braise is a completely different and superior dish to one served immediately after cooking. Number 6. Use a spider strainer and a bowl of ice water for blanched vegetables. The Chinese technique of blanching vegetables before stir-frying involves a two-step process that Americans often skip entirely. Bring a large pot of water to a rolling boil and add a pinch of salt and a few drops of oil. Add your vegetables for 30 to 60 seconds, then use a spider strainer to pull them out immediately and plunge them directly into a bowl of ice water. The ice water shock stops the cooking process instantly and locks the chlorophyll in green vegetables, preserving that vivid emerald color. Vegetables treated this way stay bright green and crisp tender in your final dish rather than turning army drab and limp. Number 5. Make your own oyster sauce substitute using mushrooms. Oyster sauce is foundational to Cantonese and many other regional Chinese cooking styles. But if you don't have it or need a vegetarian version, Chinese cooks have used a mushroom-based substitute for centuries. Simmer 10 dried shiitake mushrooms in 2 cups of water until the liquid reduces by half. Add 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of dark soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of cornstarch slurry to thicken. The dried shiitakes have an extremely high glutamate content that mimics the deep umami of oyster sauce remarkably closely. This substitute works in virtually every Chinese recipe that calls for the original. Number 4. Use a chopstick to test oil temperature. Chinese cooks have a brilliantly simple method for testing whether oil is at the right temperature for deep frying without any thermometer. Insert a dry wooden chopstick into the hot oil vertically so the tip touches the bottom of the pan. If no bubbles appear around the chopstick, the oil is not ready. If small bubbles appear and rise slowly, the oil is at approximately 325 degrees, which is right for the first fry of a double fry process. If vigorous bubbles stream continuously up the chopstick, the oil is at approximately 375 degrees and ready for the second fry. This method has been used reliably by Chinese cooks for generations and requires nothing but a chopstick. Number 3. Make congee with overcooked rice. Here's one of the greatest examples of Chinese cooking philosophy applied to everyday life. If you overcooked your rice and it is mushy and unpleasant to eat as a side dish, do not throw it away. The Chinese people have a tradition of transforming overcooked or leftover rice into congee, which is a creamy, savory rice porridge. Add 4 cups of water or chicken broth per cup of overcooked rice. Bring it to a boil, then simmer for 20 to 25 minutes while stirring occasionally. The already broken down starch creates a naturally thick, silky texture almost immediately. Top with sliced ginger, green onion, a drizzle of sesame oil, and a soft-boiled egg. You have transformed a mistake into one of the most comforting dishes in all of Chinese cuisine. Number 2. The MSG and glutamate stacking strategy. Chinese restaurant cooking stacks multiple sources of glutamate, the amino acid behind umami, rather than relying on just one. This means combining soy sauce, oyster sauce, dried mushrooms, and sometimes a small amount of MSG together in one dish. Each glutamate source contains slightly different glutamate compounds that synergize with each other in a phenomenon called glutamate synergy. The combination tastes exponentially more savory and deeply satisfying than any single ingredient alone. Chinese home cooks do this instinctively, and it is why their food tastes so layered and complex without being obvious. And number 1, the trick that genuinely changes everything. Finish your stir-fry with a ring of soy sauce around the wok rim, not into the food directly. This is a professional Chinese wok technique where instead of pouring soy sauce directly onto your food, you pour it around the upper inner rim of the hot wok and let it run down the sides. As it hits the scorching hot metal on the way down, the sugars in the soy sauce undergo caramelization and Maillard reactions before the liquid ever reaches the food. This produces an entirely different flavor profile compared to soy sauce added directly. The soy becomes deeper, slightly smoky, more complex, and has a concentrated intensity that elevates every single bite. It is the single technique that separates home cooking from restaurant-quality Chinese food. And once you understand why it works and start doing it consistently, your stir-fry will never taste the same again. And there you have it. 31 Chinese cooking tricks that actually work, tested by generations of home cooks and professional chefs who figured out that cooking delicious food is really just about understanding why things work the way they do. Start with 3 or 4 of these this week. Velvet your chicken, smash your garlic, get your wok screaming hot, and finish with a little sesame oil. Your Chinese cooking will improve dramatically and immediately. If this video helped you, drop a comment below telling me which trick surprised you the most. Subscribe if you want more deep dive cooking content like this, and I will see you in the next video.